But
Oh no, we're live. Okay, here we go. Welcome everybody to the Halfway Cafe. I'm Dash McIntyre. I'm here talking with Adrian Polk, and we're just going to talk politics. I think we're going to try to make this a kind of weekly Wednesday thing. First off, did you see the hashtag Trump Taco? The what is it? The Trump always chickens out about the tariffs with Europe and stuff like that. So it's Taco Trump. Are you loving the branding of that? Have you seen that?
I only is that been a thing for a while? I just heard about it today. I saw a news
No, yeah,
story.
it started today, I think. Like in
Oh wow.
there was like some long clip of him freaking out after a reporter asked what he thought about that. Like apparently it's becoming a well-known thing that people are saying. And then yeah, he reacted like a strong man would, the idea that, he's always going to chicken out.
Well, his
Which I
response was
yeah, go
kind of like,
ahead.
"Well, I went up to 145%, then I went down to 100. Now it's down to 30. Does that sound like chickening
Yeah.
out to you?" And it's like a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like chickening out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a strong tool, though? I hope this sticks. I did a bunch of tweets that are actually going a little viral about it with the halfway post, and isn't that the way to fight back against the strong man that wants to be branded as this tough guy? Just constantly make fun of him, constantly mock him.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Taco
uniquely.
Trump from now on.
Yeah. He's a little. I think he's a little less self. What's that? Effacing or whatever than most other people. So. I mean, that
Yeah,
was the whole thing about Mary Trump's book, how he like still gets viscerally angry and red if you talk about embarrassing moments from his childhood. So,
yeah, that's true.
yeah.
He's just a little boy. Um, do you think is that like something going forward? More reporters should just be like, "So, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, what do you think about everyone accusing you of wearing diapers?" Like, would that be a thing that you can just set them off on a daily basis?
I mean, that
You
might be a
know,
little inappropriate to ask the
Right.
president, but I think the taco thing is kind of funny.
What about something like, "Oh, Mr. President, what do you say to all of the foreign leaders who agree you have the smallest hands of any president they've ever shaken hands with?"
Yeah, I don't. That's not very professional, I guess.
Is Trump professional? Is he a professional president? I don't
No.
know if he deserves a professional press and media.
Yeah.
Um, let's
I
talk about
think
the
things
big
that are
beautiful.
making
Oh no,
I think
what?
I think
Go ahead.
making fun of his like policies specifically and directly is probably good, or explicitly. I think going after personal things like oh, this happened when you were a child, okay, that's not very professional. I don't know. It's like that. I think the like Michelle Obama, like when they go when they go low, we go high has been kind of I don't think it's a very effective strategy, but I don't think we should just go low, 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 low all the time. Like the
There's no.
inverse is not the better strategy, I feel like, but maybe sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the halfway pose? Like just kind of mocking him constantly. It's
But
kind of
that's
immature, but
satire.
yeah,
If you had a badge letting you into the White House correspondence room and you
yeah,
said
that's true. Yeah. Let's move on to the big, beautiful bill. That's a funny thing. Rick Scott, senator from Florida, announced he will not be voting for the big, beautiful bill. It seems like maybe Senate Republicans want nothing to do with it. I mean, I have to imagine they will cave and the normies and moderates will just roll over and do whatever to get a bill passed, especially once Trump starts like calling them and harassing them. But what do you think about that? Did the House create like just this monster of a mess of a bill?
Well, I think I'll say first off, I don't think there are any really moderates left anymore. Like they can say they're moderates, people can pretend they're moderates, but like, are they? It's like the joke, like I
Yeah,
put
that's
you here
true.
because what happens when all the crazies take over? You want me there to be the one person to say no, and it's like, well, you guys never say no, so I've
Yeah,
heard
but
it.
wouldn't you say there's degrees like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are certainly more moderate than like a Tom Cotton or something? I don't know.
I mean, is it
Right?
effective? Does are they? Are they speaking out against Doge? Well,
Well,
tens of thousands of people get fired. Are they
well,
speaking out
Collins and
about these
Murkowski and
tariffs?
Mitch McConnell have killed some bills. They're
They're
not going, I
committees,
don't know.
right? I guess I don't know.
Well, anyway, to take it back to the big beautiful bill, what do you think the Senate will just have like I'm not exactly sure the process, but I guess they have to agree to a lot of the tenets of the House bill and then make their own bill that then gets combined into both, and then both chambers have to then vote on that new super bill.
Yeah, it has to end
But
up
is
being
that
the
is
exact same bill.
right, but is the House bill so bad that the Senate like just has to do their own bill and then send that over to the House and see if the House will agree to something that I guess presumably is a little more moderate coming out of the Senate rather than the House?
I mean, that'd be funny. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, if the Senate tries to take out some of the more egregious stuff, Like, will the House vote for it? Probably not. It's an interesting little pickle they've got themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, do you think the Republicans are capable of doing this stuff? Like, are they going to have the budget passed in time before these shutdowns in like September or whatever?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, so far they've only really been able to pass big bills when they have to because the debt ceiling is on Monday and it's Friday. I know,
Wait, is it Monday already? I don't.
Oh
Damn.
no, it's not this Monday. I'm just saying in
Oh, okay.
general. It's
In
always been
general,
like, oh well, we have to do this because we have 2.5 days before default. So
yeah. I want to wind the clock back just a little bit. Were Democrats ultimately smart when they caved in during that previous spat to keep the government open? Remember, there was going to be that like government shutdown that Democrats were maybe going to initiate, but they kind of backed down because I think ultimately the strategy that they said was it would allow Trump to just at will start shutting down whole government departments and agencies and things like that. And so that like had they, he could have kept, I guess he could have stopped the spending that would get us over the debt limit, or I forget all the mechanisms of this stuff. But you know what I'm saying? What did that was that a good idea
I
from
don't
the
think so
Democrats? I know
because
they took a lot of shit for it.
I don't think so because I mean at the end of the day, there's 2 million people employed by the federal government. If the government shuts down, they don't get paid. Things don't happen. Like it's such a silly issue. It's like you set up the most stupid political situation possible, and then you're like, oh, they caved. Oh, they're weak, and like the alternative is just unpalatable and stupid. So like it's the same thing with the debt ceiling. Oh, they caved. What are you going to do? Let the country default? Like it's a I don't know. The political horse race around it, I think, is just silly. I mean, it works to I think the right's advantage because they think they don't care. They think they can, it's
Yeah,
not a
right.
problem if we default. So I think, I don't know, to some extent, like the government should be open just as a rule, right? The government should be open. It should be doing the things that the people tell, representatives tell
Right,
them to
right.
do. They allocate money, that money goes to things. It's like if the government should be shut down because it should be shut down, then why spend money on anything in government? Like, why don't we just cut everything because we can just shut down the government anyway? I don't know.
Yeah,
You
but
can take that too far, but
isn't that kind of what like Project 2025 and Doge were kind of like triangulating at of just like let's just cut everything and anything that's really important, there'll be such a big outcry, we can put that back together.
But in this case, it's like Project 25 wants to do that, and then there's this like arbitrary thing. Oh, the government will shut down on Tuesday because it's an even day, and it's just we have to vote to keep it open,
Yeah,
and it's like
right.
we didn't vote that day, so it's an even day, and it's like I guess government doesn't matter anymore anyway. It's kind of a ludicrous position
Yeah.
or situation, I should say.
Yeah. What do you think about the fact that the
F the
House?
feds. Someone wrote F the
Oh, nice.
feds. Yeah.
Good.
The
Um,
federal government does more than you think.
yeah, right. Let's see. Um, I was gonna say something about doom scrolling. Um, do
I
you
don't.
feel like you don't doom scroll?
No,
You don't
I
doom
don't have
scroll at all?
I don't have social media. I don't have TikTok or Instagram or anything. I mean, I probably spend a
What do
little
you
bit.
read?
I'll go on Reddit and like I look at like specific subreddits. Sometimes I'm guilty of hitting popular and seeing what's on there, and then after like 5 minutes,
Yeah,
you're like, oh my god, I'm wasting my time. But yeah, I don't really doom scroll.
that's interesting. So you spend most of your time on Reddit,
Most of my time. Define most
or
of
I
my
don't know,
time. Yeah.
most of your social media time.
No, most of my time I look at news. It's like CNN.com, CNBC. I look for some business stuff.
You go to the straight websites.
Yeah, I'm old
Yeah,
fashioned.
old school. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah, but you don't. What are you doing with Substack? Do you want to write more on Substack? What's your plan
I mean, I'd like
eventually?
to, but I don't have a lot of time. It would be nice to. We'll see.
Okay,
If everyone
whatever.
keeps watching, it'll give me the
You
time
might.
and yeah,
Yeah.
a little bribe.
Here's another good story. They're thinking about having like send some of the Doge, I guess, recommendations or cut ideas to the Hill for Republicans. And so apparently there's a package that Politico was reporting is $9 billion. So a far cry from the $1.6 trillion, I guess was the goal of Doge, or maybe something that Elon Musk claimed would happen. Um, not like $9 billion is so little money. And I guess what's your reaction? Do you care at all? Do those programs, should we just cut it? And like obviously the debt is a problem. Do we throw them the bone of $9 billion when they were ostensibly trying to cut like what is that, like
Well,
300 times more, 1,000 times more?
I always think of it like as a metaphor of like public policy and running government being like, you're walking through the woods and then you come to a clearing and then there's a fence and you're like, fuck, this fence is in my way. Let's cut it down. And it's like,
Yeah,
you don't
right.
know what was on the other side of that fence. So like, if there's if you tell me there's a random program in the federal government that gets $30 million a year, minuscule amounts of money, and it's like, why cut it? Why is it there? Like, why don't you tell me why it's there before you say, oh, we're going to cut it? And it's like, the reality
Right.
is, Social Security and Medicare, like if you want to radically change the government's finances and budget and the debt and the deficit and what our projections are, like, I mean, 30, nine, what is it? $9 billion. That's nothing. That's not even an effort. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because, you could throw darts at a board and cut more than $9 billion. So who looked at what, came to that program or set of programs and thought we should cut that? I mean, it's completely arbitrary.
No, that's true. But then what is the solution to figuring out the debt and the deficit problem? Just
I
higher
think
taxes on rich people?
no, the solution is really simple. I think the 535 people we elected to Congress should actually think about what they want to do. They're there to
Yeah.
help people and do things and run the government. I think if they, like, it's like DOGE. If they actually took, like, I don't know, 3 6 months and actually studied what the federal government's spending money on and did, like, the barest minimum, cost benefit analysis, and it's like,
Right.
okay, yeah, like, the idea is like, okay, it's like the joke of, should we be measuring like gender of frogs? And it's like, I don't know, that's a great question. Like, maybe not, but then it's like, okay, is it 1.2 million? Are we talking about 500K grants given out, and like they gave one to some people in Harvard studying frogs? Like, I don't know. And it's like, okay, but it's like, once you've gone to the decimal point, whatever that is, you're just so in the weeds, it doesn't matter anymore. It's like the joke, like if you're in a business meeting and you're talking about a big project with due dates and deliverables, and it's like, once you're negotiating or arguing about one little piece of the, like, the waterfall of everything that has to be done, you're
Right.
like, well, this meeting's pointless now. You're just wasting
Right.
30 people's time talking about one thing that affects three of you. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you come back in 6 months when you've studied the problem? That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, do you think Doge was a total failure? You think they
by the
essentially, I
by the
mean,
metrics that Elon Musk gave of cutting $2 trillion from the federal government,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I think it's
right.
a failure. And also, like,
Uh,
it's like the same thing. Like, if you threw darts at a dartboard of programs that cost somewhere between, I don't know, $1 and $10 trillion, you have a 10% chance of getting more than $9 billion. I don't know.
yeah.
It's a total failure. But the intent's still good. Obviously, like, people don't want their tax money wasted, and I don't know. Part of the problem is, like, when you're talking about waste and most of the money is going to old people and people who are, like,
And
can't work.
farmers?
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about, like, Medicare, right? You're just helping people pay for their medical needs, and, like, is that a waste of money? Like, I don't know. I'm a liberal, so I'd say no. you know People have medical needs, they can't afford it. Like, I don't want my neighbors dying, like. And so, okay, we spend a lot of money, like, couldn't the federal government negotiate something instead of just cut it? I mean, it's like the fence thing. You're like, I found one person on food stamps who was abusing it, so let's cut the whole program for millions of people. Like,
Right.
it's asinine. So I don't know. When you talk about, is Doge a success or failure, like, I mean, from a public policy perspective, yeah, because they didn't think about anything.
Right,
Public
right.
policy 101 is, you should stop and think about the thing you're trying to do and answer the question of why you're doing it.
Yeah. Because it was so stupid just going place to place and being like, "You're all fired. This is cut. Lock the door. Let us in. Stop this." um, it's like the same way Trump runs everything. Like he just does not do good. How is that good business? We should run the government like a business. We're just going to cut all this random stuff and see what happens, and be like, "Oops, we fired the people that take care of the nuclear armed submarines or something like that." We got to call them back. Whoops, somebody should have looked that up before we just fired them all.
Well, here's a hot take. I think it's actually probably good that, like, a president does do that and they are kind of hands off because the federal government's too big. The problem with Trump is that, like, they hire people for stuff that they don't even know what they're doing or why they're doing it. And some of them are hired for, like, outright nefarious purposes. And, like, the example, like,
Yeah,
with the nuclear weapon stuff, it's like, okay, you're going to lead the Department of Energy, but you don't realize that they do more than just letting people dig for oil or no. And it's the same thing with Social Security.
yeah,
Like, the guy, we were just talking about it before this, but, like, the guy running Social Security now, the commissioner or whatever, had to Google what his actual
yeah.
job
Right.
was when he got asked if he wanted to do it. Like, that's, I don't know. Like, if someone came to me, I don't know, for you, for example, like, hey, would you want to run the EPA? You'd be like, no, no, I don't want to run the EPA. Like, why would I want to do that?
Yeah,
Like, I don't
right.
know anything about that. Like, I don't know. Or it's the same thing. Like, do you know what BOEM does? Are you familiar with BOEM?
No,
BOEM? Yeah, it's like
no idea.
they do leases for like whether or not you can drill offshore, and there's like they want to let people drill, they want to get resources, they
Hmm.
want companies to make money, they also don't want to destroy the environment, and it's like, why don't you go run it? You're like, why would I'm not a lawyer, I don't know anything about drilling off the coast, I don't know anything about conservation of those areas, I don't want to work with states
Yeah.
screaming at me all day. So I don't know, I think
Do
it's
you think
weird.
the Trump administration's hired a lot of people that just don't get that imposter syndrome? And it's like, yeah, why not me be the person in charge of the nuclear jobs? Like Pete Hegseth really has no business running the entire, what is it, like how many million people like
Like 2
indirectly and
million
directly
people.
involved? Yeah, with the Department of Defense.
Well, I mean, to some extent, right? Like, who would be qualified? And like, I understand like wanting to
Well, like
bring
a
in other
general or
people.
somebody that, like a lot of logistics and organizational experience, not the weekend Fox News
Well,
host,
I mean, like Robert McNamara, he was
Yeah.
ran Ford, like he was a good choice. Brought in a lot of people who understood like how to
Yeah, but he
run.
was still doing logistics and manufacturing. Wasn't he in charge of Ford or something?
True, he was not like a weekend uh,
Yeah, right.
news channel host. Yeah, like it's a matter of degree, I guess.
What do you think about these tax cuts that Republicans are working on? And does it screw over like the traditional Republican constituency of like, the people who are kind of like wedge issue voters about like guns or abortion or immigration? But like once again, Republicans get elected, they have the full control of government, both chambers of Congress, the presidency, and the courts. And like the first big thing that they really put their attention on is tax cuts, for the wealthy when we already have this debt. Trump's not exactly cutting spending. He's really raising spending. He's got a big ambitious agenda. He wants to do the or what is it, the Golden Dome? We can talk about that in a minute. But are Republicans just once again screwing over like everybody who's not rich?
Well, I mean, the first thing is like, I don't know, if you step back and say, if I hand you this problem, you go, hey, we're $35 trillion in debt. What do you want to do? Like, I don't know, cut revenue. Like, why would you do that? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, so like on the face, like, I don't know, on the face of it, like they believe that. I suppose some of them believe that it'll help the economy grow, and then we can use that growth to help grow out of our debt. But that's like it's like the meme.
Isn't
You've
that the
got
thing
like,
that they always say, like
yeah,
never quite happens?
it's the meme of like the dumb guy and then like the bell curve with like the regular people who are always screaming about everything, and then the guy in like the Jedi robes who's like the wise one, wise sage or whatever. And it's like the dumb people are like, oh, it'll cut, it's gonna, we're gonna grow out of the whole debt problem by just cutting taxes. The rich people will magically fix everything, and then the other people are the people who are just plotting, knowing that like it's all bullshit. They just like, I'm gonna get a new boat, and it's like, yeah, I don't know.
We got some comments here about I don't know why you're worried about the rich people. They definitely pay taxes way more than you do. Fair, I guess so. If you give them tax cut, then who cares? They're still paying way more than you. I mean, that's true, but I don't know. I guess I'm for progressive taxation rather than regressive taxation. And just, I kind of don't care about billionaires like racing each other to be the first trillionaire. And I think at some point, what do you think? Like, should the
Well,
government at some point just not let you be a trillionaire? I don't know.
the the problem
Is
with
that
like
necessary?
the problem with politics in general is like it's hard to define what the good is, and there are like competing ideas of like values and stuff. So like on the face of it, it is it is seemingly fair, right? Like if one person pays $10 in taxes, everyone should pay $10 in taxes. Like, is that fair? Yes. But is it logical the way modern countries work and the way like of how you harm people based on how much money they have? Like that was like the whole idea of the fair tax, the flat tax. Why don't we tax everybody 10 grand a year? And it's like, okay, first off,
Right.
like, do you make as much money for the government as we currently need? And the answer is no. But then the other competing idea of fairness and utilitarian is like the declining marginal value of money, where if you have $100,000, every dollar is X% important to you. But if you have 10X that money, every dollar is, logically kind of 1/10 the worth. So if you have billions and billions of dollars and your marginal increase in the rate of taxation, it affects you less than poor people who have no money. and would therefore be paying almost all of their money or a significant chunk in the taxation system you are trying to devise. So I think like there like it is wrong to say that like something like a fair tax wouldn't be fair, because ironically it is. It's just like not the most fair system we could
Right.
create when you take into account how people live and how it affects them day to day. So that's not fair. So I don't know if that's communist. I guess I'm Lenin. You know what I mean? Like,
Lenin, yeah. Let's talk about the Golden Dome, though. I mentioned that previously. What do you think about the Golden Dome idea that Trump is like, I guess, all for?
well, I think it's just, hypersonic missiles go hypersonic. The speed of sound is like 700, 800 miles an hour,
Right.
and then you do many multiples over that. You have, supersonic, hypersonic. It's just really hard. I don't know. I think it'll be really expensive.
Is it like not worth the cost or something? Is that what you're saying? Like to shoot a bullet with a bullet or whatever, however they refer to it?
I mean, that's like a value thing, right? Like it would be hard for me to define. Personally, I think like, the whole idea of mutually assured destruction is that we will all die if we all pull the trigger. It like,
Yeah.
this is stuff we played around with the Cold War, and it's interesting. It's kind of historical now. It's not like super relevant, but it's becoming more relevant with hypersonic missiles. What do you do if someone can shoot all your stuff down and you can't do anything about it? It makes it more likely, just logically, that they would be incentivized to do it at some point. So like, we used to have agreements that we wouldn't do hypersonic, testing. Uh, part of it was back then we couldn't, right? But now
Right.
technology is advancing. It's one of those things that's like a cat and mouse game. Like, whether or not Russia and America could have abided by some agreement like that, I imagine the CCP and China would have done it eventually. So that necessitates us having basically to do the same thing. And I understand the logic of making a defense system, and that goes into values. I'm of the opinion that if we're going to spend $900 billion pulling numbers out of thin air, like I'm fine with spending $900 billion, but what are you going to spend it on, and what is it an opportunity cost for? Right. So we have all these problems in
Right.
America. Why spend all that money on something that would be very challenging? That's a value thing. I don't. I guess I don't really know where I fall on that. It's a. I don't know. I don't. What do you think? I kind
Well,
of.
I guess I found it very funny because he wants Canada to be the 51st state, and then now he wants Canada to like pay like what is it like $61 billion to make like the
It's probably
Iron
a
Dome or
big chunk
whatever.
of their money, of their
Yeah,
defense
but it like
budget.
doesn't it not work unless Canada also deploys it? So he's like one kind of threatening and trying to like low key blackmail Canada to become a state, but also like, hey, can you go along with our Iron Dome defense system? I don't know. What do you think like the brouhaha with Canada? Like what about it? Is it stupid? Is there any chance he might try to make Canada a state? Is there any reason for Canada to want to become a state at this point?
No, I don't. Well, I don't know. So why not have more U.S. states, right? Why not join us? That's a funny thing if you really think about it. Like Canada, if they were to come in, and if I mean, I would recommend that they don't become one state, but they become like 14 states, and then they just like
Well, that's what I
bombard.
made a joke about that. Like, I'm okay with Canada becoming states as long as it's 10, and then they get 20 Democratic senators, and then like Democrats control the Senate for the next like 50 years or something. I'm like positive on that aspect of it. However, Canada is sovereign, like they're their own
Yeah.
country. They don't
Well,
want to
and
become
like,
American.
yeah. Well,
And
it's interesting
increasingly,
too.
like, I don't think they should want to become American. What, when
No,
they
I
like
mean,
come over the border now, they're going to be investigated by ICE and harassed? That's what they want.
not if they join. But no, I mean it's kind of a silly idea. Like most countries, I don't think any country on earth is just going to want to arbitrarily join another one. Most countries have groups within that want to separate and make their own country. So the whole joining thing. Plus, like then you're kind of stuck with whatever our leadership wants to do. Good or bad. I would say that you know for to some extent, if they became a U.S. state, like where would the money for their healthcare that they like so much come from? Like they're not going to get any of the money from the federal government because it's
Yeah.
just a different program. Um,
Well, a lot of those would the provinces immediately have to start like handing over a lot of money to like Mississippi, and Louisiana, like the states that are kind of takers versus givers to the national budget.
that's an interesting thing. Like I don't actually know. Like if you compare the provinces of Canada, how do they rank compared to Alabama? I
Right.
have a hunch that I think you're right that probably some of the states that are takers versus makers might still be the, the takers.
Yeah, I know Alberta has like a movement to become independent, and that they are kind of maybe a little more on the conservative side over Canada, like generally. But they kind of what do you think about that? If Canada broke up, is that possible? Should they want to? Would that be good for Alberta?
I mean, I don't have strong opinions. Alberta, that's the one with all the oil, right? So like conceivably they could be a standalone economic, player in at least that commodity. So like they would probably make a lot of money, I'm sure. I've heard that in what is it? Certain provinces have different like demographics, just like anywhere else. So some of the provinces in Canada take way more money for their healthcare system than others, just by having more older people. So I wonder if that might be part of it too. Like it's no different than Texas or England leaving, or any part of the UK leaving. It's like, oh, on these individual one, two, three, four metrics, would we be better off? But then those people usually fail to see the bigger picture and the other 20 or 30 metrics, that they'd be way worse off. So, I mean, it's no different than Texas, right? Like you think about the amount of money that the federal government gives every state in block grants and funding for all kinds of stuff and subsidies. Like, I don't think any state would be better off. I don't even think California would probably be better off, right? Like they donate a lot of money to other states from taxation, but like they're still getting block grants from other states, and it's still
Right.
tied up in a regulatory structure that's good. Like, there's a whole brouhaha about like the gas standards for cars, and that California's weight with that, but like that's like one thing, right? A lot of the other regulation of trade and stuff and products, like I don't think California could probably. I'm sure they get tons of stuff from other states that they wouldn't want to have to create like a trade union with the rest of the
Yeah.
states if
Right.
they went. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whether it's like apples, like is California just going to sit there with their like avocados and almonds? Like I'm sure they get tons of stuff. So I don't think most places in the world that have like functioning, developed, modern economies and economies of scale could really have like break off regions be better off, except on like one specific thing that, politicians who are trying to get power for themselves are probably going to highlight. But then, obviously that kind of thinking makes you kind of miss the forest for the trees, I think.
No, that's a good point.
So long story
Let's.
short, I don't think it's probably not good for Alberta to try to secede. I don't like. Is that a real thing? Like, is it just some people in whatever local government,
Yeah, it's probably
local?
more of like a some people thing at the moment, but
Yeah,
Um, uh, talking about another country, let's go to Ukraine. So Russian airports have been shut down a couple times in recent days. Is that a good way to make Russians feel the war, like the Russian people, to kind of fight back against Russian society? I don't know if they're necessarily like bombing the airports, but certainly grounding a bunch of planes, like delaying a lot of travel plans, like
yeah,
making the war kind of come home to regular Russians. Like, is that a good thing to keep doing for Ukraine?
yeah. I mean, obviously it's good because you're inconveniencing people, not killing people. So I think that's a positive thing. I think the Russian people should be inconvenienced. They are
Right.
inconveniencing 40 million Ukrainians, not to mention all the people in Eastern Europe and Europe here in America,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, it's like I don't know. I don't want to downplay a war by calling it inconvenient, but like it is a serious inconvenience that I think is okay to inflict on the Russian people since they're doing it to so many other millions of people.
Yeah. Hold on. We're getting a lot of comments from this guy, Dog Chapman. Read the room, man. I don't know. You got a lot of comments. That's not quite our vibe that we're going for, I guess. I don't know. Um, let's talk about the drone wall. That's kind of like a new strategy with like a shit ton of drones. With that it appears to be a wise decision from Ukraine. They now have like hundreds of companies building different kinds of drones. They're apparently outnumbering Russian drones, and they have this tactic of like a drone wall, or I guess kind of making like an extreme no man's land where like the moment anything moves in this like big area, it just gets spotted instantly by a bunch of drones and just gets bombed real quick. What do you think about that kind of like return to World War I style tactics where we have this like new technology all of a sudden, and no longer do human bodies are they able to like really, you know, like make a bridge through, cut through, have a chance against like all of this metal?
I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I was reading this thing about World War One, and like they talk about how many people died and why it happened that way, and just the what they went through was that the period between like the 1890s and 1914 was probably the period where for like infantrymen the most amount of increase of firepower in the shortest amount of time and that with machine guns and repeating rifles and stuff that can have cartridges that shoot multiple. I think like that was one of the problems is that no one was prepared for just how dramatically increased the killing potential was, and I think we're kind of seeing that now with like early adoption of AI and AI robotics and drones and working together or having multiple people controlling multiple drones because it's not just like one guy, it's like multiple people each being able to control multiple drones. So I think like
Right.
yeah, it's I think going through that on either side is a pretty big challenge, and I think that's why you don't see Russia. Russia has less Ukrainian land than they did 2 years ago, and that unfortunately Ukraine can't break through all the defenses Russia has. I think it's
Right.
you know obviously that's specific to that war. Most countries don't fight like Russia does. Some countries don't have the capabilities that Ukraine currently has, but they would if they were in a 3-year war for existential survival. So,
Right.
but I will say that like we'll see what happens in the future because that's kind of what warfare is going to. Every modern military is buying thousands of drones.
Yeah, do you think in a way that kind of makes a lot of like American hardware, the amount of money that we've spent, like a little obsolete if you can just have these swarms of drones for relatively low cost? Just like,
No,
I guess like drones won't be able to take out fighter pilots and like stealth bombers way high up, obviously. Like there's some capabilities, but eventually it's like only a matter of scale before we have like medium to large size drones that they can just crank out real fast and like just, kamikaze like a battleship or a destroyer or something, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a threat, right? And then it's a cat and mouse game because there's jamming
Right.
involved. You can jam multiple drones, you can send them back, you can knock them down. There's a lot of interesting companies working on this right now, like drones that are just like really big and heavy that can just like fly around and ram into every drone they see. And then you'll have
Yeah, yeah.
bigger drones or drones like with smaller drones that can shoot down. So yeah, I think it's a very dynamic space. Like everything with warfare, it kind of sucks that this is where so much genius engineering is being done, just
Right.
finding ways to kill people. But obviously for Ukraine,
Yeah.
that comment before about how Ukraine started the war, like all the Russians
Yeah,
could just turn around and go back. That's not. That's I think that's evidence that Ukraine didn't start the war.
right.
The
But
war would
I mean,
end if
like,
the Russians turned around.
yeah, it's interesting to think, like, what if you could have a breakthrough in the drone tactics of like this drone wall? Like, if Ukraine just takes such superiority and they just make a wall that just literally like just destroys everything in a like just miles and miles of drones, I guess theoretically, right, maybe more than practically right now. I don't know, it'd be interesting if like the war backfires on Russia and they just become so powerful in drones that they can start stealing Russian land or something. I don't know.
Well, it's complicated. That's like what the whole defense in depth is. There's millions of
Right.
mines in that area. You have different capabilities. Individual drones can only go so far, and then won't they go past the infantry or further than the infantry can go? And then how do you
It's not
break out from
practical,
that?
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that it's not impractical. I think it's just like it would be very complicated. And then as, if you really think we're close to a ceasefire, I don't think it would be that rational for a democratic country like Ukraine to send tens of thousands of people who may die right before a
Yeah, that's
ceasefire.
true,
And what's
right.
the gain at this point? So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Here's some quotes from Trump on Putin. These are pretty good. Trump goes, "I'm not happy with what Putin is doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time. We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all. I'm surprised." Is Trump the last person in America to realize that Vladimir Putin is like not trustworthy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I mean, some of these people who like are Putin apologists, like Putin's done this before. Like he invaded South Ossetia or whatever.
Right.
There's been all kinds of minority groups who've been put down by the military.
Georgia,
There,
Chechnya.
yeah. I mean, what they did in Syria. Like I get it that you're helping a proxy, but like carpet bombing whole cities and leveling block after block of populated areas for what tactical gain? And 10 years later, what do we see? Assad got kicked out anyway in like 2 weeks. So I don't know. Sometimes like you can't hindsight's 2020, but I think certain things you can predict, and seeing that this is what Putin has been doing for 20 years is not that hard. But
Right.
that's what happened when you don't read books and you don't know anything, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
people on the right who
Yeah.
things happen and they're like, how could this happen? read a book.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued by people like Tucker Carlson. Like he did that video where he went to that like posh neighborhood in Moscow, and he went into like a subway station and a grocery store and was like amazed that it looked really nice. And like I just feel like if you go places in New York City, San Francisco, you see stuff like that. But like what is it about people like Tucker Carlson? And maybe he's an extreme example because maybe he's just a lot, he's such a bad faith kind of person that he's not really on, like he would maybe just be doing it for pure propaganda purposes. But what do you think about all the other people, like those journalists that like got busted taking Russian money, and they claim that like they didn't know who it was coming from, but it's just like, here's what was it, like here's $150,000 per podcast episode that you do, and you're not going to be curious about who is spending that much money, like people like Tim Pool and things like that. um, I don't know if I asked a question there, but I got another quote. I'll read that. This is also from Trump. What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean, in caps, really bad. He's playing with fire! Exclamation point. And what kind of things do you think he's talking about? Right? Like, what is he stopping that could be really bad? Is he like admitting to like holding back Ukraine and not letting them like, I guess, maybe Ukrainians want to just start launching missiles at a bunch of Russian cities too to get back at them, and he's stopping them. Like, is Trump like? It seems like he's barely able to pretend he's really trying to have peace deal, and he's not just squarely on Putin's side.
I think he wants a deal. I think it's challenging, and I think that's breaking the attention span of certain people who work in the
Do
White
you think
House.
he's
But
trying very hard though? Like, do you think he's like going home with homework and reading up about like like what is Trump doing, right? He keeps having these almost meetings with Putin, and then Putin's not going to go, and then Trump says Putin wasn't going to go because he wasn't going to go, and it's like, well, then why don't you two finally meet up and just make this deal you've been talking about for like 5 months now? Like,
yeah,
what do we believe about this?
well, I think the problem right now is if I think the rational thing for Putin is to try to see if he can convince this White House to give up on Ukraine and then throw him to the wolves. And I think that that is a coherent strategy that would, in theory, work. Right? If we stop giving all the intel and support and
Right,
money and weapons from us, weapons through to them, the Ukrainians from in between Europe and all that. I think that's a rational strategy, and I think there's a chance that it could work. And I think that at this point, why else not have a ceasefire, right? I think that's like a hail mary. I think
yeah,
it's
right,
if that is his thinking. I think obviously your European countries are still giving Ukraine American stuff from their own stocks. They're still giving them their own stuff domestically made. A lot of European countries are developing their industrial complex again. Like Germany is spending
right,
100 billion extra dollars. Like I don't think that's going to be good for Russia long term.
yeah,
Historically, in the last
right.
120 years, Germany rearming has not been good for Russia.
Well, is that something?
But
Is that something to give Trump credit for? Like, is that something we should give him credit for? Hey, you actually convinced Europe to like take seriously their own defense, or is this just a byproduct, like an accidental byproduct of Trump's like real goal of just trying to be a dick to like other Western democracies?
well, it's weird, right? Like there's you got to see both sides of it. Where certain things are happening because of Trump that are positive, but is that the intent going
Right,
into the decision to be a certain way or
doing the
do
right
certain
thing for the
things?
wrong reason, kind
Yeah,
of thing.
and it's it's no different than Biden spent a lot of time going off some of the tariffs that Trump put on in the first term and convincing Europeans like, hey, China's not your friend. China's going to be continue being a relatively gray zone kind of rogue actor in a variety of ways that we care about. Right? They're taking the entire South China Sea. That's no bueno. They have land borders with more country, or they have land border disputes with more countries than they have land borders with, and that's kind of a bad thing. And then Trump coming in and potentially saying, oh, Europe, you haven't been spending enough on defense spending. It is true that multiple American presidents have tried to convince European countries to spend more, and they haven't. And it's against
Right.
agreements that they come up with, or that would be good for our collective defense. And is Trump comes in and it's happening now. They're spending more, but was that the most positive way to do that? Was that the most
Yeah. Right.
constructive? Right? And then having
That's something a great way to put it. It's not constructive because he wants
yeah.
like Greenland, but is going there and pissing off Greenlanders and making them want to like tell our vice president to go fuck himself and leave their island. Is that a constructive way to have more military bases there, or to have more access to like mineral deals or whatever, or have some like shipping route area in that like Northwest Passage? Was any of that constructive? Is pissing off Panama and saying we're going to steal the canal, is that constructive to making some new sweetheart deal that I guess gets American ships through it for cheap or whatever his goal is, right? Like, does
Yeah,
he do anything effectively? Is his like instinct to just be a bitch about everything? Does that harm him in very like politically self-destructive ways?
yeah. I mean, yeah,
And
we'll
hold on,
see.
one more question to tag on that. Is he smart enough to even realize that he's doing that, right?
Well, I don't know. Bill Bill Maher's piece on him was funny when he met him at the White House and just like I
Yeah.
met Donald Trump. He was not a crazy person, but he continues to play a crazy person
Yeah,
for the
right.
American people. And it's like, well, at least it's good to know that like people say people I know I trust. I don't know, but people I trust say he's not nuts. But yeah, it is weird. It's not very constructive. That being said, sometimes I don't know. You when I think back in the last like 30 years since the end of the Cold War, like, would more constructive approaches have worked? Do you think? Like, of all the times American presidents have said, hey, Europe, you should spend more on defense. Hey, countries around China, like maybe think about, not trying to hedge both ways. You're just helping
Right.
China. Maybe we should. And then for our own, problem, like I don't George W. Bush and Obama, when China was just putting military systems and reclaiming land and making islands in the South China Sea with the stated intent of taking all of it. Like, should we have done nothing? Like, that begs the question of what could we have done, what should we have done? But
Right.
it's an interesting thing to think about the last 30 years and what we can do going forward. In that way, some of the things Trump is doing, have positive outcomes, even if, like we said, they weren't the most constructive ways of going about it.
What do you think about Trump's friendship with Putin? Do you think he's really souring on Putin now that like Putin is like increasingly just doing what he is always trying to do, like take Ukraine, and he's not interested in a peace deal? Do you think Trump has any comprehension that like all of the goalposts have just been like have just kept moving, and Zelensky has been very patiently kind of pointing out that it's Putin that doesn't want the truce, doesn't want the ceasefire. It's Putin that's invading more land and won't stop, right? Like, does Trump? Like, what do you think about Trump's psychology behind his friendship with Putin and like his kind of like just constant rolling over for Putin? And now he's still not getting the deal. Like, all he really wants is the deal in the photo op.
I don't know. I mean, when you ask about the psychology of world leaders, I mean, in Obama's book, he talked about it like feeling kind of pretentious and egotistical. And I imagine a lot of people at that level, the kind of person who gets to that level and then wants to be president, thinks they would be good, and then is capable of running for years. And a lot of these people run for stuff repeatedly. I mean, even Donald Trump, he didn't come from nowhere. He ran for
Right.
president multiple times before. We talked last week about how he wanted to be vice president. He wanted to be in government doing negotiations with the Soviet Union at the time. So, like,
Yeah.
a lot of these people, I can't talk to their psychology.
Let's move on to economics. It's kind of funny. People have likened Trump's tariffs and like all of this trade war machinations to like a war on America. And so somebody had a good point that he's like punishing Apple for making iPhones in India, despite the fact that he's not adding new tariffs on Samsung, which makes phones in South Korea. So it's weird to like be punishing this American company, right? You look at what he's like assaulting Harvard and these other Ivy League institutions and trying to like make them have like business failure and not have international students and like just generally try to screw them over. Like, how does this make America great again, that like our university system is going to cease being like a kind of like educational supremacy kind of thing?
Well, to your first piece, I think this is an interesting topic, and I've been trying to wrap my brain around. And it's kind of a hypothetical and maybe a little long-winded of a question, but like, what do you like the thing about tariffs that I don't understand and the logic that even economists use, I feel like doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And that's a very pretentious thing to say that I think economists aren't thinking about things. But like, or people say they're economists, but like imagine you're a company. Imagine you're a company. Let's say you sell $1,000 widgets, right? And you buy them from China for $3 each. And so part of that is you are buying stuff from China, $3 a piece. Let's say you sell millions of these things. So, you're $30 million you're giving China to buy something you're going to bring here and sell for $1,000 a piece for $3. Don't you make $997 of profit for every unit you sell? And you can say, oh, we have, and you're selling to Americans, right? Because we're the biggest market in the world. We have 340 million people. So, like, what I don't understand about the whole idea of how anyone is getting ripped off is the Chinese people making these $3 widgets are making money, because why would they do it if they weren't making money? Or they're getting subsidies from the CCP, so they're still making money, right? Whatever. But if you get all these widgets and you sell them for like 300x, how is America not better off? I've never understood that. Like, if you look at any product being sold, if they have a margin above a certain point, let's say you have a margin of 2 to 1, right? Like furniture, they sell for 3 times the price. Like, what a car, how much does it really make to or cost to make a car and then sell it, right? And you're getting parts from all over the world. I just don't understand, like, the idea that somehow we are hurt by, Apple's the most profitable company in the history of the
Right.
planet, and they sell a lot of iPhones to Americans. So, like, how is anyone getting ripped off by making them in China? I understand that money goes there, but doesn't it come back to Apple? Doesn't it?
Right.
And the second piece of this, I've never really been able to wrap my head around. Apple makes a lot of money selling iPhones to Americans and foreigners. Apple makes all this money, they give it back to shareholders. Shareholders take their money, they sell their stocks, they put it in banks and other investments. When you put it in a bank, it goes to the M2 money supply, right? And then banks can lend everything out multiple times to multiple different people. And it's like, okay, you bought a $3 widget in China, you paid them $3. Now you made $997 in profit. You gave, $100 to your shareholders. I don't know. There's a long-winded point, but does that make sense
Yeah.
to you? That, like, the
No, yeah,
logic of
yeah.
it, like, it's like when you say it's so
Well, none of their
simplified to
logic
say,
makes sense, and that's why they have no coherent like strategy to spin it, right? There's, is it going to replace all of the, income taxes? Is it going to make us a bunch of money to pay off the debt? We'll bring all these factories back. Like, they just have these conflicting reasons that are paradoxical once you start comparing like the actual, causes and effects of them.
well, here's another point. Like, does any company not make more money selling something that was made somewhere else?
Right.
Like, anything you sell, your margin is probably higher selling it to the consumer than buying it from the supplier. First off, like, why would you? No one's selling things for a loss. So the bare minimum, your margin's probably gonna be a little higher, right? Because it passes through multiple people. I don't know. I don't really hear anyone who talks about economics talking about, like, the bigger picture of trade. And I get that, like, and the other thing is, like, manufacturing versus like services. Like, to some extent, okay, let's say we lost all manufacturing jobs. There's ramifications, but on the face of it, like, we could still be having a surplus of services and financial transactions and information and all that stuff. So I don't know. Those are just two big things I haven't been able to wrap my head around. And I don't hear even, like, economists talking to me. And that's my problem with economics. It's like everything in economics boils down. That's an overstatement. A lot of stuff in economics boils down to is you draw a curve. Here's a product, supply and demand. And it's like, I think trade is more complicated than if you raise the price by a penny, demand will go down. These things are bad. Inflation of 1% bad. And it's like, I feel like it's just infinitely more complicated than that, which obviously is the case, but I don't know. That's a very long-winded thing that I've wanted to talk about to people, and no one can get, like, no one really has, I don't know, given me a good answer or thoughts on that.
I mean, it just the trade war makes no sense. There's nothing. I mean, like the why are tariffs suddenly on 50% for Europeans again, and now he's going to negotiate? Like, what does that have to do with anything? What is changing it? We're talking about like being a good businessman, and it's like, just willy nilly, just changing what day, what percentage the tariffs are going to be. Like, how does that build the industrial base in America that he's going to build? Right? Like every company would be like, "What the hell? This guy's psycho." Like literally we build a factory for you, like it's going to come online in 3 years, but the tariffs might change every single day leading up to when the
Yeah.
factory will actually start making stuff and taking those inputs and selling for new, like, having products to sell as outputs or whatever.
Well, it's the same comment as before, like pragmatism, right? There are reasons why you tariff things. There are reasons why you tariff individual countries, especially the CCP in China, and their people just, they get subsidies for everything and they can dump across the world market. Like, we should fight that. That is a good thing. But, like, to your point, why the European Union? Why are we going to make think of all the trade between America and Europe, and how many people are in America? 340 million people. How many people are in Europe? 500 million. So it's like Trump is going to make 840 million people's lives marginally worse
Yeah,
over a
right.
weekend. And it's like, oh, tariffs 50%,
Yeah.
tariffs down. And it's like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the stock market in Europe went down by like quite a bit, didn't it? And it's like, you're just making a lot of people's lives worse for, I don't know, what's the gain, right? Where's the trade deal?
Yeah, I mean, it's been another week. Are we any closer to the 90 trade deals in 90 days? We talked about that last week, and now it's been 7 more days to
Well,
the
there's a
uh, the
comment that says,
90-day
I believe
mark.
Trump. There's a comment that says, I believe Trump wants to tank the U.S. And it's like, I don't think Trump wants to destroy the U.S. I think, he has different ideas on what's good. Some of them are a little outdated, I think. And it's like the joke that he's kind of like stuck in the 1980s, we're getting ripped off by Japan kind of mindset. It's a little more complicated than that now, but I don't know. It's no different than the discussion earlier about like fair trade or fair taxes and oh, if we just keep cutting taxes on the rich, like it'll make everything magically better. Like it's still a goal to help America. You're just kind of wrong, and it's not, particularly borne out in reality or all the times it's been done. But
Yeah. Would you say there's anybody in the administration that has impressed you, or maybe not done as shitty a job as you were expecting?
hmm. I mean, in this moment in time, how many people can I recall who they are, what jobs they have? I imagine there's a lot of people they've hired who are probably doing okay work and
Well,
listening to
how would you rate
experts.
like
Like,
Pam Bondi? I think Pam Bondi, I would say, is a little more North Korean-esque than I was assuming she would be. She's like very fawning on Donald Trump in
I
a
mean,
lot of
the
these interviews.
the stuff that makes the news is like not good, right? Like I think was it James Comey was talking about how like the FBI director would have never ever like had dinner with the president just for optics alone, let alone even if you could genuinely sit down with the president and have a nice meal and just talk about sports. Like, why would you do that? The same for the attorney general. And like, there's no end of times when Obama was president and they believe that Eric Holder did things that were untoward or whatever or unethical or whatever. But it's always such a matter of scale. I feel like, and so no, I'm not impressed with Pam Bondi. And like, but to some extent, it's like, what do you do when the president signs an executive order? Like, I want you to go after these two people by name. Like, how many
Right.
executive orders do you think in like the last 80 years have called out individual American citizens by name for something? Probably not many.
Yeah, would you say the number of executive orders that Trump is signing has gone down dramatically? Like, has he tried to kind of just executive order his way through a lot of Project 2025?
I mean, I
Um,
think it's inevitable because Congress doesn't do anything. So if you want to do anything, you're literally going to.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it's slowed down quite a bit. Like, is even Trump being productive? I know Congress really is not being productive at all, right? I think they passed like, I think it's like 4 or 5 bills, it's like single digits the number of bills they've done. And I talked about this a little bit, like when after the election when we first found out Republicans would have like both chambers, but like there's a strong possibility that like this entire year will be wasted. Like if this budget doesn't get passed, right? If the Senate Republicans don't want to go along with the House budget bill and they come up with their own bill and now it won't get the House to sign it. Like there's a strong possibility like they don't get anything done. Like will the government shut down with a Republican controlling everything, or will they just keep kicking the can down the road with like, continuing resolutions to, have frameworks or concepts of an agreement by, 3 months from now and then just keep doing those can kicks.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. They'll have to do something by the time the government shuts down. I think it's in July, right? So the other funny thing
And
is,
there's something else in September, maybe like the
I think
budget, fiscal cliff, or not fiscal cliff, but the I don't
debt
know,
ceiling.
the debt ceiling. Yeah, that's a ticket.
I think there's a funny thing where oh, what was I going to say? Oh, it's like when you look at the amount of debt we have and the budget deficit, when you're spending so many hundreds of billions of dollars more than you have year after year to benefit different groups, it's like, and you have a coalition government of different interests and stuff of people wanting different things from different states, locales, etc. And then you have ideologues within the parties who want their own thing. So it's like, it's a funny problem set, right? Like if you're just spending money on all kinds of people all the time to get their votes and to keep them happy, and then you're like, we need to do something about all this spending. You're like, oh no, we can't because we promise all these things to all these people. So how could they have a bill, right? That is going to do everything they want without pissing some people off if they're going to do anything about the debt, right? Is it even possible? Like the only thing you can do to make more people more happy is just spend more money, right?
Right.
So I mean, I think that's a problem they have, and it's hard to get to yes without the debt ceiling,
Yeah.
3 days away.
Yeah. And then we're gonna also spend like $250 billion on an Iron Dome.
But again, values, right? Like, it's no different than the Biden administration spending billions of dollars to help with pre-K or rural broadband, right? Those are just value things that people want. So I don't necessarily think that that's that bad. But then, it's why are you doing that when the debt's so big, and why are you doing that while also spending money everywhere else to help all these other interest groups?
Yeah. Um, Last section here. I'm curious, do you use any AI in your life?
Do I use AI? Yeah, I use
Yeah, yeah. Do you
ChatGPT quite a
use
bit.
Oh yeah, what do you use it for? I'm just curious.
It really helps with math. It really helps with
Oh, really?
doing
What,
stats.
cheating on your homework?
Yeah. Or learning
Are
better.
you one of the students now who cheats just uses AI for everything?
Yeah.
Are you the problem?
No, I'll say like one of the things I see, and it's kind of funny, is AI is really helpful if you kind of know what you're doing, so it helps you be better. And then if you don't know what you're doing and you just blindly follow whatever it says, that's like a problem. So
Right.
there's also funny things. It's like the whole like little slashes in between words or sentences in ChatGPT, and then you see people sending emails. You're like, I'm pretty sure that's just copy and pasted from ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah, it
So
probably
you're
is.
starting to
Yeah.
see more people be like, oh, I'm pretty sure my boss just emailed me from ChatGPT. How thoughtful. Use a robot.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. ChatGPT is pretty useful. Kind of fun to play around with. What do you use it for?
I don't that's the thing. I try to figure out ways that it could be useful. And, like creative writing, it's just not good. Obviously, anything like remotely satirical or comedic, it's just not good. I try to like, I'll copy and paste like, one of the articles I do of like my graffiti news headlines. It'll be like 20, tweets that I've done. And it's like, write me more jokes in this theme or whatever, this style. And like the jokes are kind of like a 4-year old that like is kind of inadvertently funny because the premises are weird and it's like a non sequitur kind of setup that it does. So it's not funny. And then I guess I would rather just read things. I don't like copying and pasting and be like, give me a synopsis. I would rather just read the whole thing. So I don't know. I'm just generally curious for people who do use it because I try to use it and it just doesn't do anything for me.
I will say I think it's interesting. I've never really used ChatGPT to come up with like words and stuff, paragraphs or whatever, and actually have it a way I like it. So I think when people say, "Oh, ChatGPT can write all this stuff for you," and I've never had anything come back and not have to edit it quite a bit, whether just to be in my own voice or because it's just kind of silly, or like it'll be like, not that it's illogical, but it just like goes down rabbit holes in a paragraph for no reason. So I don't know. It makes me wonder about people who say they use it for everything and for every email, and it's like you really just copy and paste. Like you have nothing to add, like linguistically, or for like the use of the English language or how you talk. I don't know. I found that interesting, but I think for like technical stuff, it's extremely useful. Not that anyone would normally be doing this, but if you're like, oh, what would be like, for statistics and stuff, it's really useful. If you want to know anything in Excel, how to do it, it's really helpful to tell you step by step how to do it. I have not been able to get it to code right. So everyone who says they can do code, I mean, I do even do like HTML code. You like ask it to do the simplest things, and then I just like copy and paste it into an HTML code runner, and it'll be like error, and it's like, oh, these 5 lines of code are messed up. So I don't know who thinks that like people can just make it code everything and that coders won't have a job. But I think it goes back to the idea of
Yeah,
like, if
right.
you're a coder, you'll know how to use it better because like you'll be
Yeah,
able to
that's
look at the
true.
return and be like, that's wrong, or I know how to edit it to make it right. So I mean, we'll
Yeah, what
see.
do you think about the people who use it for like therapy? It's like becoming a big thing where you just ask it a bunch of questions and it like literally gives you free therapy.
Well, I mean, in theory, right? Like, so if it has everything that therapists learn on and all kinds of interesting cases of stuff, like it'll be able to recall stuff better than a human will. I mean, it's the same thing with like
Yeah.
lawyers, right? In theory, right? It could pull up every law
That's an
ever
interesting use
referenced.
case. Would it be like yeah, like lawyers just plugging in the entire transcript of a court and maybe like AI can figure out, I don't know, some like inconsistency with like the defense or prosecution's arguments or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Be kind of
know.
interesting.
I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to go to jail because you know, a prosecuting attorney or a lawyer was able to use ChatGPT to get you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, can you program the AI not to be a snitch?
Well, I mean, it's interesting too because like ChatGPT specifically and OpenAI was having stuff hallucinate more because they wanted to do positive
Yeah,
upbeat and
yeah,
give you
right.
positive answers, and so it was just making stuff up. So I don't know. Some of the AI is just marketing stuff. Like when they say, "Oh, it can do X, Y, and Z better," like when the people running these companies that are 90 billion plus companies, or want to be $90 billion companies, or even worse, want to be $3 trillion companies, my assumption is that they're going to ruin it over time to make more money off
Yeah,
users
right.
and then
Do you think
sell it.
it's gonna have the natural enshittification?
I think it's inevitable because I think when you're at that point when you like own stock or are on the inside of a company worth billions of dollars, and like for example, like OpenAI is a great example. They went from a nonprofit to a for-profit, and they're
Right.
what are they worth now? Probably 120 plus billion. And like, there's going to be a point where someone or multiple people on the board are like, yeah, it's really nice we have a $120 billion company, but it'd be really nicer if we had a one
Yeah,
trillion dollar
right.
company. And then
Yeah.
even then, I mean, like Apple's a 3 trillion market cap. Well, probably not now because of the tariffs, but like the reality is, like I think when you're on those boards and you have that like liquid, not liquid, but you own like ownership of these companies, like why would you not want to 10x them if you still can? And
Yeah, right.
unfortunately, most of the times when you 10x your company, it's because you've basically ruined the environment, you've hurt your users, you've hurt your customers, or you're just shilling for advertising. So we'll see.
Right.
I think the enshittification's inevitable, though.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, like Twitter, I used to do so much doom scrolling there, so blissfully ignorant in the days prior to Elon Musk like ruining it. Um, but I don't know. Facebook, do you use that at all anymore? Like I see nothing but ads.
No,
Like
not
my
really.
halfway post content that I post there does like none of my audience members even see it, because of the algorithm. It's
Well,
just
the algorithm's so aggressive. Like on my Facebook, I noticed that like I looked at one little thing came up. It was like a meme of Seinfeld, and I looked at it. And then for whatever reason now, my whole Facebook, all the promoted content is just Seinfeld stuff. And it's like I don't even like Seinfeld that much. I don't know why it's giving me all this stuff. And I'm just like, what a
yeah.
useless algorithm, and it's incapable of moving past Seinfeld.
No, yeah, yeah. Well, Facebook was always like that because it would always be like you would see some post of like some trashy person that you went to high school with that's like ranting about their boss, and like you just stop and read it and see like how trashy it gets, and then Facebook's algorithm thinks you want nothing but their content from now on. Like kind of like watching a train wreck kind of thing, but then it'll only show you the train wrecks. Um, but I don't know. Anything you want to plug here at the end?
No, nothing. I'm
Okay.
not trying to plug.
Okay, I'll plug something. I got this book, Satire on the Biden Years and Satire on the Trump Years. They're each filled with 4 years of content. I think they're hilarious. If you like the halfway post, if you like my daily tweets and Dadaist graffiti news, interrupting your doom scrolling, check out those books. And, I think you'll enjoy it. I wrote the book I wanted to read. Any last thoughts? Anything else you want to say before we leave?
Do you think Dog Chapman is a bot? That guy.
I hope so. I wonder about that. It's like when I'm on Twitter and like you see people commenting, it's like, is anybody real anymore? Is it all bots? It's almost like a joke. I think to myself that like everyone I'm interacting with, all my followers are just bots, and I'm just like in this little echo chamber of manipulated algorithms, just making me think I have any interested people watching out there.
Yeah. It's like 176 people are watching now, but two of them are real.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Dog Chapman gave us his phone number. Give me a call, he says. Yeah, man, I don't think I want to talk. I don't think you read the vibe of this chat here. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Tune in next Wednesday. I'm Dash McIntyre. This is Adrian Polk, and this is the Halfway Cafe. Thanks, everybody.